Hey guys, welcome back to Beach and Fishing, which is my site aimed at assisting those of you with fishing. I said that really high pitch then, didn't I? With fishing. I'm a not professional, but an avid fisherman, and you know what? I like writing about it, like researching it, so I thought I'd start this little site and channel and see where we end up. And today I'm going to talk to you about my three best surf fishing drones. Now this comes about, as most stuff that I write about these days comes from my experience, because I'm lucky enough that I get to head to the beach and fish more often than I used to in the past. And so the other day I was down there and I was watching a guy actually drop his bait out in the middle of the water with drones. I mean, I knew it happened. I've got friends on Facebook who go to one of the beaches here and there, and he chases sharks. He puts a big hunk of bait on a drone, throws it out in the middle of the water, way past the surf breaks, and catches 3 or 4 sharks every time he fishes. You just know there's a reef there. He just drops it in, off he goes, and brings them in, releases them, and that's his sport. So it's definitely something that you can look at. It's not a cheap exercise to get into. If you have a look in the post that this one's attached to, go to the very bottom. The pictures a bit didn't transfer over to my website as well as I'd hoped, but it's actually, I went out on a fishing trip with some friends of mine out in one of the dams near here recently, and one of the guys had a drone. He uses it for his roofing business, but you can see the range and the clarity and the beauty of their pictures alone is just well worth the effort, I think, and it's definitely something that's on my to-do list shopping wise once I stop buying fishing rods and reels and the like, that is. But anyway, let's talk about drones for surf fishing. So drones, this isn't a real surf fishing drone, obviously. It's a little plastic one that my son got given at Christmas or something like that. There you go, it's little colours and stuff like that. I haven't seen it actually work in a while, but anyway, that's a drone. Little unmanned aerial device, what do they call them? UAVs, unmanned aerial devices, they call them. We all know of drones, everything from the big military ones that throw in cruise missiles and like, or down to all the uses. I've got a friend of mine whose job is to check out koala habitats. He throws up a drone, it goes around the top of the trees. Did it recently when we had all the bushfires down here in Australia. He spent months and months cruising around the bush with his drone, checking out koalas, checking out wildlife and stuff like that. Steve uses it to demonstrate the roofs he's just put on and the like. But you can also use them for fishing. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, the thing to remember, I guess, and I mentioned to you a minute ago that it's an expensive pastime. Drones aren't cheap, or good drones aren't cheap, and they don't automatically come with the payload capacity for you to be able to take a lure or a piece of bait out and drop it somewhere further out than what you can cast. And that's basically why you'd use a drone for fishing, so you can get your bait or your lure out past where you could cast with any normal fishing line. So let's have a look at what you need to worry about. So first off, there is some legalities. I know in the US, in my research, I wasn't aware of this until I did my research, but a lot of states in the US, if you've got large enough drones, and these include surf fishing drones, you actually need to register them. So people know that you've got them and you're flying them in areas that are safe. You cannot fly drones anywhere near airfields, military installations, government buildings. They frown upon that there. Some of them won't let you fly them in cities, and there's a lot of rules and regulations about flying them in urban areas as well, obviously over people's backyards and the like. But generally for fishing, just be aware of your local legalities and obviously your ethics. I mean, they've got some pretty powerful cameras on them and you're there looking at fish. So be aware of that. So what are we looking for? First up is the camera. The camera is the key to them. Most of them these days are 4K high-tech cameras. I've got a GoPro here somewhere, and some of the cameras my GoPros are 4K super duper. I spent some money, got myself the latest one. I throw in my kayak, but and the drone cameras outshine that dramatically. The video on these is unbelievable. Let's see if I can see it. If we go to the very bottom of my post, let's see if we can. So this here that's drone footage. That's actually one of the drones I've got that I've recommended. And you can see that's us in the boat. There's me sitting there. My boat, it was freezing that day. It was about 6 degrees Celsius. but you can see the quality of the camera. It goes up high and then we take it off from it in a second. And I'm showing you this to demonstrate something else I'll explain to you in a second. So as we've hit the boat off, we'll keep going, we'll keep going, we'll keep going, and eventually you'll see the drone dip because it means we're out of range. This is up quite high. You can see as we get away, it gets out of range, and they get confused with the water as well. See how it's dipped there? It's now out of range. We're a lot further away here than what it looks as well, and it'll just hover there until we come back into range. So that's a feature that you can look for a drone as well. So think about the camera that you want, how good a quality you want it to be. Again, with like anything, the high quality you want with all this sort of stuff, the more you'll pay. But even if you don't have a payload on it, the drone can be used to just see the reef, see where the water is, see if it's like an aerial fish finder if you're on the beach, if you're not in a boat. I mean, boats we use fish finders. Drone can be aerial fish finders. I should write that in a post. I just thought of that. It's a pretty good one. Think about that. Think about your flying time, battery time. Most of them will last about an hour, if that. Some of them I think are 20 minutes. So either get a few batteries or have a portable charging pack on the beach with you, or just know that you've probably got, if it takes you 2 or 3 minutes to get your bait out, you've probably got about 10 shots to get your bait out there before the drone runs out of battery. A lot of them, what they will do, again in their functionality, look for functionality, a lot of them will keep enough battery time to get them back to a stop point. So if you're sitting on a beach, you'll set that as your stop point. You'll send the drone out. If it starts to run out of battery, it won't drop in the water. It will come back and drop down to where you are. Don't move up and down the beach because it'll go back to where you started from. But again, you're paying for the high functionality that it will not drop itself in the water if it runs out of battery or it loses range. That's another one. People go all the way out chasing whales and dolphins and things like that, which is fantastic for, I will say, but they get out of range and the drone drops in the ocean and it's gone. So just be aware of that. If it hits out of range, it will either stop or just before it gets to that point, it'll turn around and come home. So that's the functionality you want to look for as well. And as I mentioned, that's range. I mean, the one that there, as I said, that looked a lot closer when we were probably about nearly 1 kilometre away from that drone when it stopped. We couldn't see it. Could not see it in the air, but obviously it could, as you saw in the picture, that was about 1 kilometre, which is 0.9 of a mile, I think, or 0.8 of a mile. Could even be 0.6. I don't know. I can't remember. What's a mile to a kilometre these days? Mile to kilometre. A mile is 1.6 kilometres. So 1 kilometre, 0.6 of a mile that we were away from there. So again, good range, and that's how far you can. I mean, you're not going to be taking your bait out 1 kilometre out to sea. You're really not. You're going to be taking it just after shore break, which you'd be lucky to be 30, 40 metres, 100 metres max. So you're going to be okay with that, but just make sure your range is there as well. GPS and return home we've talked about. Again, you want to make sure that it's got the GPS to come back to your starting point. Or, as we do with fish finders, you can set GPS coordinates for your drone and just press a button and it goes to there. It goes to that point. So if you know there's a reef just outside the breakers, where I live, there's a reef probably about 100 metres offshore. Can't cast to it, and that's why the guy had the drone, because you can drop a drone on there and you can get snapper, you can get the reef fish while standing on the beach. So that's another reason to use a drone. You can set a GPS point on your mobile. Most of them are operate by your mobile phone. You put your mobile phone in a little controller thing and they do that, or your cell phone. Hit the coordinate, out it goes, drops a lure, drops a bait, comes back. So GPS, return home, they're critical if you're over water. I mean, otherwise it drops in the water and you're gone, unless you got the Swell Pro, which we'll talk about, but that's something to be aware of. And waterproofing. Not many of them waterproof. I have got a waterproof one here. Some of them are water resistant, which means they'll handle a bit of spray. They won't handle being dropped in the water, but if they get a bit of spray, they'll be okay. Wipe them down when you get them home and you're generally fine. I mean, you're using it in salt air. So I think you've got to accept that the shelf life of them isn't going to be great compared to if you're not in the salt air. But some of them are, as I say, they're splash proof. Like a little bit of water get on them and it's not going to break them. But don't take them for a swim. Okay, so that's what to look for. Think about your camera. Think about where you want it, how far you need it to go. So range, how long you want to use it for your battery life. Think about the water resistance or waterproofing that you want on it. What your payload capacity is, so how much weight it can take. It's no good getting yourself a drone and taking it out there, and you put a larger sinker on, like a good star sinker or something like that. I've got one here and tells me that doesn't tell me what that is, or that told me this. So if you've got a big star sinker or something like that, that's too weight for the payload, too heavy for the payload, waste of time. So think about your payload, think about your what have we got? Waterproofing, GPS return home, as we say, all those sort of things. So I've had a look around, and I've come up with 3 options that I would suggest you have a look at. Obviously, if you go in, there's plenty there, but let's scroll up a bit and go to the first one, which is the DJI. DJI is a very well-known, very popular brand. This one's only $400, so it's not going to do as much as the other ones will do. The one that I shot down below is a DJI, which I'll show you that one in a second, but this is a mini, has a payload, 12 megapixel aerial photos, 2.7K high definition videos, and 3-axis motorized gimbal. A gimbal's a little round thing so that the camera lens can go in all directions. 30 minutes flight time, 2.5 Ks range, but only 100 meters if you throw the payload on. Didn't tell me the payload capacity. No GPS return home, not waterproof, and sold separately as they all are. So you'll need to make sure you don't take this one out of range. Extremely light, and it runs on a smartphone app. So I chose this one. It has good reviews online, and it's cheap. It's a lot cheaper than all the others, so it's a good one to just try it out, see how you go. See what you like, see what you don't like, and then go from there. But the payload, as I say, only 100 meters, which would be fine where I am, but if you're like the other guys chasing the sharks and stuff, they're going to go a bit further out. Swell Pro. This one doesn't have I will say from the start, this one does not have as good review results as the DJIs and some of the other brands, but it's waterproof, fully waterproof. You can drop it in the ocean. There's photos on the Swell Pro site of it actually going through waves and the like, so it's very good for that. It has good quality. It's $999. The only problem with this one too is the payload thing actually comes with a waterproof camera and the like as well, so it's a lot more expensive, $326 compared to what, $50 for the $45 for the payload thing there. But if you want a waterproof drone, and as I say, the reviews aren't as good, but they're not horrible. So you're not looking at, I'm not recommending you a dog here. It's a good drone, just that people like the DJI ones better, I think is all it is. But yeah, very good. Certainly wouldn't put on here if it didn't have good reviews and good results. 4K video, 12 megapixel images, 3K access again. Smaller flight time, and range is only 800 meters. That was part of the reviews, to be honest, is the smaller flight time, and compared to this one, 2.5 kilometers. 800 meters is not as far. GPS return home, though, fully waterproof, payload device sold separately. So you've got these options here. Waterproofing is your big one. Autonomous follow me option, which is good for boats as well. That's the other problem we had with the one when we were on the dam, is that we couldn't set a home point because in a boat you're moving. But this one's got the follow me. So very good, and it's actually coming back to me more and more as I think about this. This is the reason of the lower that, and some people didn't like the front camera scratches a bit easy, but apart the camera cover, not the camera itself. But yeah, it can land in water, take off from water, runs on a smartphone app. I don't think you'd be disappointed if you picked this one up. Third one here, the DJI Mavic 2 Pro, which is what took this video. As you can see, it's a lot more expensive. The payload device is nice and cheap though. But look, 4K video, 20 megapixel images, 1-inch CMOS sensor. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds good. Up to 31 minutes, 3 to 4 miles, 4 to 6K, so massive range. Flight time's not too bad. They don't tell you the payload capacity, I'm not sure, but This is the one that the guy had down on the beach as well. He had one of these on, and it was handling, I think it was about a size 4 sinker and a big hook, so he was not having any problems with it at all. Payload will reduce this range, of course. Some water resistance to it, as in it'll get splashed and it's not going to break it, but and the payload's divided separately. Smartphone app, omnidirectional obstacle sensing, multiple charge options. This one, the few that has a battery inside, so it charges through a USB. Most of the others just have batteries that you need to replace, but this one has all that. And as I say, I'd love this one. This is probably why I haven't bought one yet, because this is what I want to get. But at $1,600, it's a bit much at the moment. But yeah, a very, very good option there as well for your fishing drone. I don't think you'd be disappointed with any of those 3. And that's it, guys. That's my 3 drones for surf fishing. Highly recommended. Really good fun. I mean, even if you want to sit on the headland like a lot of people do here and just look at dolphins and whales and fish, I mean, they're just great fun. But keep in mind your ethics and your range, your functions and your features as well. Obviously, the more, like with anything, the more you pay, the more you'll get. That's it, guys. Hope that was helpful for you. If you're watching this from YouTube, please like and subscribe to my channel. That way I can keep you up to date with all the gizmos and the gadgets and the rods and the reels and everything I come across. As I mentioned a minute ago, I just bought myself a GoPro, so I'm starting to get out there a lot more and actually show you of me fishing rather than just sitting behind a desk. And yeah, so subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're watching within a post, if you have any comments, if you've used any of these drones, if you've been a drone fisherman, if you have used drones for anything to do with fishing or anything else, please comment below what you use, how it works, whether you've had an experience with the ones I've listed, anything like that. Would love to hear from you. Thanks, guys. Chat to you soon. Bye.